All right, guys, today we have a very, very special guest. With me on this Google chat is Evan from Stock Music Musician. And
Hi,
now he
Jesse.
has a very, very informative and useful YouTube channel, which you need to subscribe to. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're getting into the TV film licensing business and that's what you're interested in doing, and that's your primary goal, that's great. You should definitely do that. But there's also a whole other world of licensing and getting paid for your music that you might not be aware of. And I'm actually not that familiar with the ins and outs of that side of the business either. But luckily, Evan is here to help us out. And so we're going to go through some of the basics of the stock music world in the licensing business. Now, this is something that I've talked to some of my members about. I've talked to maybe some of you guys here on my channel about, but I don't have a lot of personal experience. And so Evan's going to walk us through that. So what you need to do, pause this video, click on the link below this video, and subscribe to Evan's channel, because not only is he going to teach you about the stock music world in and out and his personal experience, he's actually been doing this personally for a long time, but he also has a lot of great tutorials on Reason 10 and previous versions as well. But obviously Reason 10 is the most recent release. So if you're a Reason 10 producer, his channel is your go-to place for tutorials, walkthroughs, tips, tricks, cheat sheets, all that good stuff. He's going to teach you all about Reason 10 and how to use it professionally, especially when it comes to the stock music world. So Evan, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for being so easy to work with and set up a time. And I'm really looking forward to this chat a lot.
Awesome, man. So yeah, I have a lot of personal questions. I know my subscribers do as well. Now, I have to say, sort of full disclaimer out there, I have been a little bit shy about encouraging people to go towards stock libraries, royalty-free libraries, that kind of thing, mainly because of TV film placements do have this sort of passive income that can be associated with synchronized and TV shows that get aired over and over again, right?
Right.
And so stock libraries obviously typically don't have that associated with them, but they have a lot of pros and they have a lot of benefits and advantages actually that the TV film licensing business doesn't have. And so
Yes.
I just wanted to bring you on board here to ask what your experience has been submitting your tracks to stock libraries, how long you've been doing it, what have been some of the successes you've had, what have been sort of the learning moments you've had, maybe you've made some mistakes that you can help
Yes.
avoid in the future. And that's kind of what my whole channel is basically I'm just spilling my guts as far as all the things that I screwed up and did wrong so that my subscribers don't have to make those mistakes. And I'm sure you've made plenty of those yourself. So if you can give us sort of like a overview to start off with, what is the stock music world? How does it work? And how did you get involved in it?
Sure. Those are a bunch of great questions. So the stock world is basically, you could almost think of it like the minor leagues of music licensing. Basically, what you would do is you would create a song, you would go to a website like Pond5 or Audio Jungle, and you would upload that song with a bunch of tags or keywords. And then it sort of sits up there almost like eBay or Amazon, where a user or a buyer could look for, like, energetic punk rock. That's what they type in. And then a bunch of tracks would pop up and they could purchase the license for that track. Usually the fees are much lower than you'd see in the bigger licensing world, but they do add up the bigger your library gets. And so there's a lot of differences between each library, which we'll probably get into. But that's sort of stock music in a nutshell. It's slightly more generic, maybe, than music you would make for film, where you're trying to do more of a copy a specific style or a specific artist or track. But I kind of stumbled into stock music, I'd say in my early 30s. I had given up on music for a while, just sort of would occasionally strum, but I'd been in bands and made a bunch of music down the line and sort of just thought, you know what, that was fun, but it's not going to happen. And then, at some point I'm like, no, I need to do this. I need to do this, but like, I don't have the time to be in a band and try and, start a career from scratch based on my name and my likeness and, getting out there. So I started researching all sorts of different ways that I could have people hear my music without having to promote it myself, because that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I also had a hard drive full of songs, or half finished songs. And so through a lot of research, I stumbled across a website called Audio Jungle and started trying to upload my tracks there and had almost no success. But that led me further down the rabbit hole of stock music and eventually found a few other sites that I really liked and was able to start getting my music there, write more songs, get more placements, more purchases. And over time, I've pretty much been selling now 20, 30, 40 licenses a month. It's a pretty, it's not anything to retire off of, but it's $300 to $400 a month, month in, month out. And that is also entirely passive. I have done about maybe 20 or 30 hours of work on my library in 2017 and pretty much continued to make that based on the songs I wrote in 2016 and 2015. So it's passive in a different way, and I think there's sort of a ceiling to it, but yeah, that would sort of be the overview of the industry and my experience with it.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about what people are probably most interested in, which is the money, right?
Yes.
So they probably want to know. And actually, I mean, just hearing you say that, my first question would be, okay, so when you said there's a ceiling, does that mean there's a limit to the number of tracks you can upload? Because if you're making 300 to 400 after maybe, whatever, a year or two of kind of building up your catalog,
right,
what's to prevent you from doubling, tripling, quadrupling that income to the point where it's 2,000 a month, right? Just because you grow your numbers. Because I can tell everybody watching this that, like, in the TV film business, it's kind of the same thing. It's that it's about numbers, right? So like, yes, you can get lucky. You can get that one placement that gets you, 20 grand or something crazy. Right. But for the most part, and I'm going to do a video about this on my channel soon, that your average payments is going to be like $25 to $50 a placement. They're not a lot, but the whole trick is numbers. And then as time goes on, as you're seeing, Evan, with yours, is that the passive income is that, like, yeah, I composed those tracks 2 years ago and I'm still getting, once in a while I'll get a little placement. So what's the ceiling when you talk about that? Like, you can't put more tracks out there, or how does that work?
So you're absolutely right, Jesse. There's no hard ceiling on the number of tracks you can put onto these sites. Or really, there are quite a few different sites. So you can also, many of them are non-exclusive and you can syndicate across sites, but not every site is going to be worth your time because it does take, probably every site's a little different, but it probably takes 5 to 10 minutes to upload and tag a song. So if one of the sites sort of isn't as active among buyers, and that might not be worth your time. But on my main sites, the main reason that I am not sure that that there's a ceiling is more that there are basically, I think there's a lot more opportunities out there as well. And so I'm looking to focus more on the types of things that you guys do in the syndicate. And I'm actually about to join up with it because I think the two really complement each other. But mostly I've been just trying to improve my skills as a producer, and this has sort of been a way of doing it along the road. And sort of, to write one good song, you write 5 okay songs that have something redeeming to them and that you like, but maybe they just don't hit it. And you can never explain why that one song is even good because you just write it all the time. Right. If you could always do it. But so I think I'm trying to focus more on writing that song and then putting the other songs on these websites. But previously I had not been trying to focus on writing that one song. I've been focusing on I'm just going to write, I'm just going to do a song a day type thing where they were good. And I was trying to learn something in every song that I produce. I'm like, all right, today I'm going to master that trap hat, or this song, I just want to see how big I can get the guitars to sound or something like that. But now I think I kind of want to flip the equation around. And so I don't see it growing as quickly. That's sort of how I describe it.
That makes sense. Yeah. And one of the main reasons for that might be that in the TV film world, you do have a potential to make that $20,000 placement, right? I mean, that's there at least as a possibility. And maybe in the stock world, you are sort of capped at whatever they allow you to. That's my next question here. Yes. Is who sets the rates? Like, do you get to, and are different sites different that you get to go up to a site and say, hey, this track is an amazing masterpiece and I demand that people pay me $10,000 to use it? Or do they normally say you get to decide between these three pricing tiers that you can offer? How does that work?
And that's going to be a site to site difference. Certain sites like Audio Jungle pretty much set the price, and I don't know what the price is at the moment, but it used to be like $15-$20 a song. Pond 5 lets you set any price you want, but I think the average price for a track there is like 25. I've seen some songs sell for like 250, and that's a 50-50 split for the sync fee between the artist and the Pond 5. I've sold song, and then they also have some tiers of licensing. So it'll be, are you just going to use this for YouTube or for, your personal use? That's one level. Are you going to use this for like a regional commercial? That's another level. Are you going to use this nationally? Well, that's another level. So I think like the most I've ever made from a song is like a $90 sync fee or something like that off of Pond 5. I think probably, I'd say most of my tracks are probably between $20 and $35 to the buyer, and then I'd get half of that. So most of these are $10, $15, $20 sync fees as well. But and maybe we'll talk about this later, but the back end royalties are sort of that upside is sort of possible, but maybe not probable.
Yeah, we go into that if you'd like to. We talked about that before. How does that potential royalties work with this?
Right. So I think most of the people that are watching your channel probably know that it's the songwriting royalties where you're really making most of your income from. And many of these stock music sites let you be a member, let you get access to that sort of revenue stream. But the problem is that many of the buyers simply aren't either putting the music in a place where you'd receive royalties, or if they do, they're probably not aware that they should file Q sheets. And so you probably are not going to see significant amounts of royalties from your PRO.
Just how it works for right now. Yeah. And the other thing though is happening is obviously people are starting to notice that the cable world is being cut. People are cutting their cable. They're going to streaming. They're going to online methods of entertainment and shows and that kind of thing. So that's why I never have a closed mind for how you can make money with your music, because I do think that sites like Pond 5, Audio Jungle, while like you said, maybe not the main big TV producers, trailer houses are going to be going there for their choices. More and more content producers will be springing up online, just people in their homes that have a camera and some video editing software, and they're going to be creating shows and talk shows and all that kind of stuff straight from their homes. And they're going to need music. They're going to need something to kind of add to their production value. So I think the future is there's going to be a massive industry out there for sort of like smaller content producers, online producers that start having bigger budgets and can afford to do that.
Absolutely.
There's definitely a future in that.
Podcasts,
There you go. Totally. There's so much stuff that's going to be, it's obviously happening now and it's going to just only grow. And obviously I have been a huge supporter of virtual reality, and I think it's so exciting. And I do think that there's a lot of crazy content being made right now. The next Spielbergs of the virtual reality world, or the next Disneys who are going to create empires in the virtual reality world, are coming up right now. And so we're in sort of the wild west of some of these new entertainment mediums. So, and they're all going to need music. All of them are going to need music. So there's a lot of opportunity. Now, I wanted to ask you, so as far as setting your own prices, or maybe if they set your price for you, that's set. You just decide, all right, I'm going with this site. They're going to tell me I can charge this much. Now, when you get to set your own price, do these sites sometimes give you a hint of like, hey, just so you know, typical prices are this to this? Or do you have to kind of do that research yourself to kind of look out and see, all right, let's say you put together a trap song. You go on their site and you realize, you know what, my trap song is higher quality than everybody else's on this site. I could probably get away with charging more than everybody else. Like, do you get to sort of just do your own research, or they give you a range?
You do. It's they give you a suggested price, a minimum price, and then you can do your own research. I tend, and they're a little cagey on how their search engine works, but I believe it's sort of like what they would call a velocity-based search engine, kind of like the way YouTube works, where if somebody searches for something and then clicks on it and watches it, the next time somebody searches for that search term, that video will show up higher in the search rankings. So on these sites, I think it's the same thing. If somebody searches for like, you know, uh, like modern trap beat, and then buys the track that they click on, next time somebody searches for modern trap beat, the songs that are purchased are more likely to be higher up on the search ranking. So there's sort of, unfortunately, this pressure to undercut yourself so that you show up higher on the search rankings so that more people will buy your songs. So you show up higher on the search rankings, so more people will buy your songs.
So yeah, my next question would be, I mean, I know it's site to site, and so
Yeah.
what, who knows, but are most of these search engines the default setting looking for the lowest price, or is it normally like best match?
I think it's the best match, but I think you're more likely to for that middle section of buyers. I don't know that I think they are price conscious a bit. You think of a YouTuber, who is like, they produce a video a month or a couple videos a month, but they're not going to have a huge budget. And so if something is pretty good at a decent price, then I think they're more likely to do that than to pay the premium. Not to say that there aren't some premium buyers on these sites, because there are, but it's not necessarily easy to match up with them.
Okay.
And the other thing I'd say is that, there's a floor, thankfully, that on these sites, so they don't charge, you can't sell a song for less than $20, a sync license. So that's sort of what I do for my cues or my endings or my, more of like the specific stinger parts of the song, and then I'll do a full song for more than that. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess I would want to know, okay, so do you think it would be better to, as far as getting more plays and getting more attention and therefore possibly getting more licenses, would it be better to flood one particular genre with like 50 of your songs so that when they search for trap, they have to go through someone and they're going to have a higher chance of going to yours? Or do you think it's better to spread out, if you can do a couple of genres, obviously, and have a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there? Do you know if one of those is a better
That's a great question. And I hadn't thought of that before. I think actually, if you had a big library of tracks already in one genre, I think that is not a bad strategy. In a general sense, I think probably, because this is like anything else, is a volume thing, it's also just important to do what you can do well. So if it would take you longer to make trap songs because that's not a style that you like can naturally produce quickly, then I wouldn't recommend it. Because ultimately, first of all, you have to like the songs that you're doing, because like I'm sure you experience this, probably like 60 to 70% of my songs don't get licensed. I can't predict which of them are going to get licensed or not. So you ultimately kind of on one level have to always be making the music for yourself, on one level. At the same time, you're making the music to put it out there and to license it. But on the other hand, I think you also have to do what you can do well and you know how to do well. So I think it depends on your strengths, really, on a producer to producer basis as well.
Great. And then I would want to know, is there any data you can get from these sites as far as what's been recently placed? What are the most searched terms? Like, do they provide any sort of instinct as far as like, hey, everybody's looking for cinematic hybrid trailer music, or, do they give you any hints?
They do. What Pond 5 does, I haven't looked in the back end of Audio Jungle in a while. I think they do have a chart. And then a few of the other sites I've used, Audio Micro and Production Tracks, don't really seem to put that info out there. But Pond 5 has a very robust back end that's available to artists that have signed up for the site. And actually, in some ways, that might also be useful for people just trying to write music for other placements to just see what's hot on the Pond 5 library. So it might be worth signing up, even if you're more focused in TV, just to see what's terms are being searched for, on the lower tier there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to see if there's something that's, popular, and buzzing up and stuff. But I find in the TV film world, it's normally the pop genres. It's basically whatever's on the radio is what they're always going for. They're like, we love this song. It's because it got popular on YouTube or whatever. And so they want to be associated with a current trend and a
Yeah.
current sound or whatever. So that seems to be what my whole career has been. It's just, we always chase the modern pop world. So I don't know if you've seen some of that in the stock world too.
Yeah, actually, brings me to an interesting observation. Actually, is I think it's almost in some senses the opposite. What you'll see as some of the most popular tracks tend to be like upbeat corporate, like a ukulele and some whistling or something like that. But that market's closed. Like the 15 or 20 people that wrote those songs like 5 years ago they're the ones that are selling all their songs and they sit at the top of the charts. So do not chase that dragon. A little bit of this stock market world is also more trying to focus on the long tail, which is sort of, I don't know if everybody's familiar with that term, but comes from search engine results, search engine optimization, where, if you look at a graph, I'm probably doing it backwards, but there's like this big peak part of the graph, but then there's this tail part over here where the big major producers don't have time to, write a Latin jazz version of Jingle Bells or something like that, where, you can follow your bliss a little bit out on the tail and write the type of music that just doesn't necessarily, isn't being filled by the other side. So, yes, you definitely, a lot of the work is on the trends. And if you can keep up with the trends quick enough, then I think you'll be successful. But if you're like a year behind the trends, then I think you might be better off focusing not on the trends at all, but on sort of the outside parts of music.
Right. Finding those tiny little niches that a lot of people aren't paying attention to.
Yeah.
That's really important. Yeah. And then, I do like the fact that we had talked about this before we started recording that, the main advantage for the stock music world is that you can instantly get that feedback on, did my track get placed? And if you guys aren't aware, the TV film world is not like that. I mean, you can use things like TuneSat, and sometimes the library that you work with will give you a little heads up like, hey, your track just got used for this campaign. And I've probably gotten 5 of those notices in my entire career. You don't get them that often. They don't necessarily always get those updates. A lot of the times, 99% of the time, you don't know what's going on until 6 to 9 months later, you get your royalty check from BMI or ASCAP. And then you go, oh, cool. Like back in March, I got this placement. And so that's typically how you know what's working well. So it's a much slower feedback process, but you do need to obviously take stock of that in the TV film world, because you need to know, all right, just like Evan was saying, 60 to 70% of your tracks probably aren't getting all the placements or maybe none of them. So you want to make sure you stop producing that kind of music and you really pay attention, go through your royalty checks or go through your statements like he gets, like you can get them instantly to find out, hey, you just got something placed. Hey, you got something placed. And so when he gets these daily or weekly notifications, he can see it's this style getting placed, this style, this style, this style. And he's probably seeing he's got his winners, he's got his ones that get placed the most, and then the sort of second tier, and then the ones that he just never sees at all. Like they never get any placement. So he's getting that feedback pretty quickly. So he knows how to like course correct very quickly. The TV film world, you got to take a year before you do that course correction. It can be done, but it's a lot slower. So that's definitely an advantage you have for sure.
And I think they're really complementary in some respects because, especially if you're starting to learn how to produce or how to write for somebody else instead of trying to write for yourself. I get an email at every day at 8 o'clock, just about. I don't receive one every day, but they send one out if you sold a song at 8 o'clock, so you know whether or not that day a song was licensed. And that speed really, I think, helped me improve as a producer and a songwriter much quicker than I would have if I had to wait for that feedback loop. Because, even though these are not, it's $10 or something, somebody is spending their hard-earned money that probably can't afford to spend more. So to them, $20 is like they're making a commitment on your music, which means that it really meant something in terms of value to them. And so I think that sort of feedback can be really both inspiring to like get you to do the next step you need to take in terms of digging down to writing a song or to mixing a song, or automation, which I never like to do, but you got to do. And then also just it's kind of helpful, these checks, in between, just in terms of like gear and samples and things like that, helping to sort of offset some of the costs you need to really build out a studio, with the type of gear that you need to quickly make good music. Not that you can't do it with a lot of the stock stuff, but some of the other plugins and gear makes it much faster.
Absolutely. And I'm all about proficiency and efficiency with your production. If you can have shortcuts and save time and have templates and have your go-to places, that's absolutely like the way to go. Because when it comes down to numbers and building up your numbers, whether or not it's going to be stock music or TV film, you got to be able to consistently produce. I always say it's like a 2 to 3 tracks per week is where you should be shooting for. I know that might sound crazy to people who are like, what are you talking about? I do like 1 track a month. Like, it takes me forever. Okay, well, work on maybe trying to get it to 2 tracks a month, maybe down to 4 tracks a month. That'd be 1 a week, and now you're on your way. But it is a numbers game, and I think on either one of us, no matter which way you go, or if you want to go in both directions, the really cool thing, and Evan had this really awesome idea, was that if you want to go, and I think this seems to be his strategy now, is if you want to go to TV film licensing, you sort of put your all into submitting to opportunities and libraries and all that good stuff, but you're going to face rejection, guys. Like, I still face rejection. Everybody faces rejection, especially for custom gigs. Like, if you're going for a library, you probably should have less rejection, because they should tell you exactly what they're looking for. And if they're signing you as a writer, they kind of know you can produce. But if it's a custom job where somebody's like, hey, we're just trying to get a bunch of tracks from a bunch of producers, whoever has the best track wins, yeah, chances are you're probably not going to get the gig. Just, reality. It's just statistics. If you're 1 out of 20 people submitting and everybody's submitting 2 tracks, chances of you getting it are pretty slim. But if you had a strategy, a plan B, or just another outlet like this, like the stock music plan that Evan has been doing, at least your tracks aren't sitting on your hard drives. That's the worst. If you're just collecting dust, going nowhere, or some people, they like to just put their stuff up on SoundCloud and they're trying to get fans. It's like, okay, go for it. But like, fans don't really pay for music so much these days. They're not really conditioned to do that anymore. So you're trying to build this whole audience up, your fan base up. And what are you going to do with all those fans at the end of it? Are they going to pay you? Are they going to actually support you? Hopefully, hopefully you have good people that actually want to like put their money where their mouth is and actually help you. I just, from where I'm sitting, since Napster, since the 90s, since the internet revolution, we have a generation, a millennial generation that's just conditioned that music should be free. They get it free on YouTube. They get it free on Spotify or Pandora, or wherever they get their music. They just are conditioned that it's mostly free. People still buy, they still download and all that kind of stuff. But that industry is really, it's falling off right now. And licensing seems to be the one that's picking up the slack for all of them. And even like Evan said, even if you're not getting these massive checks with stock music, you're still getting valued for your work, right? And just getting a little bit of like attaboy every day or once a week or whatever. I mean, you guys know, I know that some of my my syndicate members have gotten their first placements, or their first royalty checks rather. And yeah, it might be $20, $50. It's not a lot of money, but they're going through the roof with excitement and motivation, because they're like, somebody paid me for my music. And that's actually a big breaking moment. Stepping through that first hurdle of somebody on planet Earth valued my music enough to pay me something for it. That's actually a big deal. I'm sure you remember your first check, like, whoa, like that's a really cool thing, and it does do wonders for your motivation and your energy and your productivity. And those 3 things are what it's going to take to succeed. You got to have energy, production, motivation. You got to do this consistently every single day. So whatever you got to do to get some of that in you every single day and every single week, get it, because that is a scarce resource. It's way more scarce than money or time, having the energy to just keep going with your music and keep producing. So I think this is a great thing to just add on to your arsenal as far as you trying to do this full time for a living. So Evan, thank you so much, man. Do you have any parting last minutes words of wisdom for somebody getting involved?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Jesse, by the way. This was awesome. And I really hope you guys consider doing stock music. Be sure to check out my channel if you want to learn how to do it. And the big thing I would say about this is some of my early tracks were terrible. Like, I am ashamed of them. But the occasional one still got placed somehow, which shocks me. and some of them are still getting placed. So no matter where you think you are, like this is possible. And if you've been, watching these YouTube tutorials, Jesse has a lot of stuff on production values and mixing and arranging and all of that. And there's a bunch of other stuff on YouTube. Like you can figure out how to do this. You can absolutely be making music that is getting licensed 100%. Like I thought, 3 years ago, no, I mean, somebody else is doing but like, I've got a full-time job. I'm not that like, I mean, I'm a decent musician, but I would not consider myself in any way a child prodigy or even like an adult prodigy. I'm just a guy with some guitars and a reason, and you can do this. So you just got to work on it. It's the tough thing is there are a bunch of skills that you need to master. You need to be good at writing, you need to be good at recording, and you need to be good at mixing. And those all take time, and they're like three balls that you're sort of juggling in the air. But if you work at it, you get better. And it's a numbers game. Just keep on working and you will succeed.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much, Evan. And remember, guys, click on the link below. You need to subscribe to this guy's channel. You're going to learn a lot more than we got into today. We're just sort of skimming the surface on some of the strategies for how to really do well in the stock music world. So it's even something that I might be considering going into, because I know that I do occasionally have those like non-exclusive opportunities that I have just sitting around waiting for more non-exclusive opportunities to come around. So I might be looking into the stock stuff, because I think that there could be, if there's money sitting on the table, like, hey, there's no check too small for me. Like, I'm definitely going to take advantage of something if somebody wants to pay me for it. So thank you so much, Evan, for your time today. And I know that my subscribers are very thankful for the very, very useful and practical knowledge that you provided today. So thanks a lot, man.
Of course.